Morning, everybody. I'm trying to get Eric Solagi from the Uncomfortable Podcast to join us. We're having some technical difficulties on his end, trying to figure out how we can get him in here. So that's what the issue's been for the past, 20 minutes now, you guys. So I do apologize for the delay on our wonderful good morning, happy, you know, conversation because we got some really interesting topics that me and Eric were going to talk about with you guys. And Eric has been doing a lot of research into this phenomenon for pretty much most of his life. So I definitely want to get his take on developments that's happened in the past 7 days. And for everybody else who's wondering, yes, USA beat Canada, won the gold in overtime for the hockey team. So USA. So not only did the men's team won the gold, the women's team won the gold as well. So we sweep the Olympics again in hockey. Go ahead, USA. Congratulations to the lady hockey players. Congratulations, you guys. Well earned and deserved. Same thing for the men. Just want to say that. So, good morning. Let me get my chat. All right. Hey, tell me what the spirits. Good morning to you guys. We're trying to get Eric in here. He's having some technical difficulties. So, but guess I'll get ready to jump in. Okay, we're going to try again. Okay, there, Eric.
Jesus, God Almighty!
You're live, by the way.
You, I don't
Okay.
care.
Now
Uh,
we gotta get rid of the other guy.
hang on a second here.
There's your handsome face. I haven't seen you in a minute. How are you?
Good Lord, this is this is kind of precarious here. I'm trying to figure out how to get my phone to stand on its own. And I know that I have something here that can help me.
As funny as I remember when I was first doing this, and I went live with you about the drones and everything that was going on. I had to get my phone set up too in my living room just right, and now I've got like camera and a computer and microphones and everything.
Yeah. Hang on a second here, bud.
It's kind of funny how we move up in the world as we keep doing this.
Well, it's no shade towards Riverside, but this is why I stopped using Riverside, because once I got the Roadcaster and all the things,
Yeah.
it just stopped working with Riverside. That's been the issue here, is I had to go onto my phone, excuse me, to get this to work.
Well, you sound good. Yeah, I'm still on my Zoom. I'm not using Rodecaster yet. I'm still using the Zoom, the podcast for Zoom, and so far it's been really good. Um, we went with Riverside because it was a really good option. It was a cheaper option for me to start off with, so that's why we went with Riverside for now and everything. But I'm liking the office setup. It's looking, but every time I see you come on the show, I mean, or your show, it looks better and better.
Well, thank you. I think I don't know. I'm just trying to make it my space, I just try to have all the things that I like around me, and just make it a comfortable place. So
I would be in the tavern, but the temperature dropped last night, and the wind is blowing, and it's cold, and I'm just going to sit inside and do this. Is a lot. I prefer to be comfortable when I'm recording.
yeah, well, I would say that we probably got pretty close to 4 inches overnight. I was up till about 11. I walked out into the living room and looked outside, and there was a dusting. I would say there's probably between 3 and 4 inches out there right now, which was cruel as hell, because last week we had, I think, since last weekend, 4 days that were in the 50s, low 60. I mean, it was beautiful. Stacy and I sat out back and sat in the sun and felt like it was in its 80s. We're so used to we've been getting blasted here in Northwest Indiana.
um, you guys can keep it. We got blasted with 11 inches of snow and sleet, and I'll be honest with you, the first day was fun. First couple days were fun playing with the Jeep. After that, no. So, good morning, Charles. So, Charles has been on my show a few times. He is our local astrologer, so he's going to fit in nicely with the conversation what we're going to have today. And then, of course, some of the spirits is in here.
Sorry about that. I was clearing my throat.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah. So Lisa's in here. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Charles. Chumming the spirits. So
where can I see the chat?
There should. I don't know if you can see it on if you're on your phone. Well, because I clicked the chat, so I have a tab right here. So I got it pulled up. So if you can't see it, if somebody asks you a question, I'll direct it at you. But Charles has been on the show a few times. He was down. He saw the Marfa lights. Which was a really neat episode. But he is like, yeah, full blown astrologer. This is what he does. He's living in Texas now. His son lives up here, and great kid, by the way.
Nice.
So he's gonna enjoy the conversation. Nobody really knows what we're going to be talking about yet. So
glad you're here. Good morning.
Yep. Chris. Good morning, Chris. How are you? So, but all right. So tell everybody real quick. I'll kind of back brief it up. Before I launched my podcast, I was already listening to you.
Yeah.
And took a lot of inspiration from your show and some other shows to, launch my platform, and kind of looked up to you in a lot of ways, and still do in a lot of ways of, the podcasting realm, how you do everything, what's going on. And when I hit my number 25th episode, you were number 25 for me. And I was so excited to have you on the show. I was, like I told you, I was kind of a little fangirling. And, I love the fact of the matter that, with you and me and our relationship, I mean, you're busy, you have everything going on, but all it takes is a quick message from one to the other. And it's like, we just picked right back up from where we left at.
Yep.
And I think that connection's rare to have, especially in this community.
Oh yes. Very rare. So, there's not many that I do that with.
Yeah, and I'm honored that to be one of the few. I do know that because when this topic got broken, when the issue came out this week, I automatically knew who I wanted to reach out to. Automatically. This is right up your alley.
Yeah.
This is something that you've been studying for a very long time. With your own stuff, your own everything, and your show started off in one direction, and it went into and you had to make some changes in your life, which was great, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the direction the show is going now. And it's funny how sometimes we think on the same level. We both have great episodes on the Night Siege.
Yeah,
that took place up there out in Rome.
Yeah,
and I love how we come at it from two different angles. So if you guys want a whole good information dump on the Night Siege,
pretty rounded, concise culmination of just about everything you can point at with that experience.
Oh yeah. So check out Eric's episode. If you haven't checked out my episode, check it out as well, because Eric does a great job with it. And again, Eric's a lot like how we do things. We're not going to come on the show. We're not going to throw, we're just throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. And we're going to try and verify. We're going to go through and vet as best as we can. When it comes to the research, encounters, on the other hand, our take on it is the same, to where we weren't there for the encounter. We are going off of what our witnesses telling us, and that's all the information we have to go off.
Yeah.
Eric has had, if you haven't listened to Eric's encounters on my show, make sure to check out episode number 25, Uncomfortable. It's got a great little picture of the microphone with the spider web on it. Those are my favorite pictures I found. So, but let's see here. We got, all right, Miss Monsters and Mullets is saying, what's up? Joey's, hey man, good to see you. Hey Joey. Miss Lisa. So we were just up at, I was talking to, we went up on investigation. I sent you some of the pictures of the structure, one of the structures we found.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Grass? I did. Very reminiscent of photographs that I have still sitting actually in a very recent file, because I just revisited it again. I think I told you about this maybe yesterday. I might have brought it up with you. My episode 2 and 3, opening day. The pictures of the structures that he sent me from 2011 through 2000 and actually 2011 might have been the most recent, because I just talked to this gentleman this morning, probably 20 minutes before you.
Oh wow.
He's currently on the road. He's about 3 hours from home. And not to let the cat out of the bag, as it were, but I mean, whether it happens or not is dependent on a lot of logistics. But the hope is to do basically a small documentary on the events, hopefully with on-site recreations. He is firmly capable of providing us passage to the tree that he was in when it walked out in front of him. He knows that his dad's stand is still there. He said, given the fact that I've lost 117 pounds, it'll make it considerably easier for us to get back there. For me, he said, with him in prime condition, it was a challenge to get back there. But we're talking about springtime, before it gets really thawed. We want to still have some hard pack. It's a I don't know. It's 6 one way, half a dozen another. I want to get out there because I want to see if there's indeed any trace evidence, tracks or anything recent. But it's so muddy and it's so swampy that we almost have to go out there before there's a real good thaw, so that we can actually navigate getting back there without being up to our waist in hip waders and going through water. So we're going to try to plan this to get us out in that area. He said that he's capable of getting us to the tree that was near the food plot where they found the urine stream that started at about 5'9", and then ran down the tree. He's fairly certain he can get me to the same tree that his daughter found the deer carcass 25 feet up in the tree. And then he knows we can absolutely get to the saddle, which was the higher mounds in the middle that kind of overlooked the 2 valleys where he had things screaming at him. So, yeah, we were just talking about that this morning. As far as, is he willing to take us out there? Yes, he is. He's willing to make the time, and he's willing to go back on camera to tell the story, which originally aired as him just being known as John, because at the time he still is, but enough people know about it now where he's not too worried about it. I mean, he was a school teacher for a small local school corporation here, very close to me, actually, to the school that I worked at and where my kids went to high school. So that's kind of exciting, the idea that we could actually get some of this on film, and if for no other reason, just to be a companion piece to the original story. Certainly not expecting it to take off to be the next Small Town Monsters or anything like that we can release something every 12 days and get 1 million views. That's not the goal, but the story has resonated with people for so long now that I think it'd be really interesting to be able to bring that video aspect to the fans of that story, and we'll see what goes on.
Well, I mean, that's exciting because that was one of I want to say, before I started following you, I heard you on the confessionals,
Mhm.
Was it the confessionals or it was Cribs of the Corn with Justin and Jay. And
Yep.
so I jumped over to your channel and I remember you talking about those two Pacific episodes. And I jumped right over to them. And those are the first two that I listened to.
Yeah.
And to this day, it's still, I'll pull it up every once in a while just to re-listen to it, just to kind of keep it fresh.
Honestly, I do too. It's just, you know, the fact that I was able to go there and record with them in person in front of the family. You know, 2.5 to 3 hours I spent there in front of the wife, who did not appear in the recording, but it all played to the legitimacy of what both he and his daughters were saying, because you know there were no eye rolls, there wasn't any oh my god I can't believe he's telling this fucking story again, you know, and stuff like that. So it was all a very organic. The daughters weren't originally supposed to be in it. I'd never considered asking them because I thought, you know, with their age, I wasn't quite sure how old they were, and you know, I didn't want to make anybody uncomfortable. But they both, you know, I don't know what it was, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes into recording with the dad, Chris, who was known as John at the time, they were like, we want to tell it too. So, you know, I got to sit there. There was one of the daughter's boyfriends was there. The brother was there. The dog was there, you know, the wife. So, you know, I got to see all of them in their natural environment, you know, in the comfort of their home. And dude, there was nothing shady about what they said whatsoever. And you know, I guess that's part of it for me that makes it so, you know, because you can have interviews with people that, you know, you're looking at them on a video screen, but you're not seeing the actual interaction between them and other members of the family, or you know, you're taking people at their word, and whether you believe it or not, you know, some things are hard to believe but are still true. Um, but you don't have anything to base your perception on. When you're there in front of somebody and you have that personal interaction and you see the nervous picking of the finger, and you know that you can see the emotion.
Their body language says a lot. I like the in-person interviews better than you know, the camera or the audio only, for that reason right there. Like, you know, Chris, who's now become a good friend of mine, a good investigator researcher as well, for his encounter that he had, you know, of the picture you sent me the face of that we found.
Mhm.
So I remember that, or not from last year.
Yeah.
But he, you know, when he reached out to me, he goes, I don't want to do this over the phone. I want to look you in the eye. I want to tell you my story. So it's not on camera. It's just me and him sitting across from each other at the table. And the way he goes into his encounter, yeah, I prefer that so much easier. I just did another one at Old Bart's a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now. And same thing. The guy's like, I don't want to come on camera. I don't want to do audio. I want to sit across the table from you and I want to look at you. And what's really powerful is he gets to the part where he was driving home. And you'll like this one. He was coming home from, if you're in Arkansas, you guys, you know, from the Pine Bluff. So he's on the old highway on 530, and early in the morning, no traffic out, and boom, this bright light just hits him from above. And there's missing time. He has hours missing from him going to where he got in trouble at work, trying because he was on his way back. He was working. He
Yeah.
was in a work van. And they're like, you know, where the hell were you? Blah, 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 blah. So, but he got real emotional about that. So, but I do. And that was, but yeah, I'm not going to lie. Those episodes 2 and 3 of yours are probably one of my favorites. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have one of yours that are bad. There's not one episode of yours that I've listened to and I could go, okay, Eric, you could have done better. Not a single one of them. So,
Well, I've had some people reach out and say you can do better. I mean, that's the thick skin that you gotta grow when it comes to people leaving comments and stuff. And the thing that I have found, it is so people come to have an expectation of you, and with that expectation, there is an expectation that everything should remain free. And as much as we would like to be able to provide everything for free, the cost of doing this can add up. So when you decide to go with someplace that bakes in ads for you to help create revenue that, yes, we get, but not to a cost to the people who are listening, right? So the people that have to go online and leave awful reviews because the ads are jarring and I can't stand it, and he used to be good, but now he's this, and so if you can find a way for me to do this completely free and not impactful to me cost wise, please let me know. I would not come to you and ask you to do your job for free.
Right.
I think that's unreasonable, and how much does it take to reach and hit that little fast forward button on all of the different players, no matter what you're listening to,
that you can skip it,
that you skip the ads? What's the big deal? I understand that it's annoying. It's annoying to watch a TV show and have ads come on every 6 or 7 minutes, but you do it. So just lay off. Unless you've got a better way of doing things, shut the hell up. Just stop. All you're doing is being a keyboard warrior down in your mom's basement, and you're pissed off because you can't listen to something uninterrupted. Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way life goes, I mean, so, but anyway.
My favorite one is I had I don't mind the negative ones as long as they don't attack my guest. I'm okay with that part. They can attack me all they want. I had a couple of people who were like, your intro's too long. I'm like, I like my intro. It's upbeat, it's funny, it's me getting information out there, talking about events that we're a part of. And of course, I mean, again, like you said too, though, this does cost money. A lot of people don't realize that, some people think you just break out your phone, hit record, and go. And no, like when I first started, I was recording off of an iPad. I mean, I really was. I was using an iPad to record. I had the phone on speakerphone right up to the microphone so people could hear. And now, I mean, as time's gone by and realized what I need to, produce better content, got a laptop. Got a nice webcam, got, recording equipment and everything. And when I first got the equipment, I was all excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And it sounds so much better. And, oh, I can plug people in and go from there. So, but without talking further about this, though, because you and me can talk about this all day long.
Yeah.
Big news this week dropped.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and read you a quote here in just a second.
Please do.
And all right, you're going to love this one. So, President Obama came out. He was featured on a podcast recently, and he was asked about aliens. And he came out and he quoted, "They're real, but I haven't seen them," is what he told the American podcast Brian Tyler Cohen. All right. He said, but the thing is, they are not being kept in Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the president of the United States. Okay.
Yep.
So President Obama comes out, and real quick, everybody in the comments, no politics. I don't want to hear no bashing from the left or no bashing on the right as we continue this. This is about aliens, not about Republicans or Democrats or anybody else. So President Obama comes out, makes a statement, and then he decides to backtrack it. Did you hear the backtrack he did?
I did.
To where he came out and he said, "Oh, I was just trying to keep up with the conversation, the flow of what was happening." Okay, I can go with that one. Well, immediately after that, though, President Trump comes out and he states, and this is probably the one that caught my attention the most. He gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. Period. I don't need to say anything else on that quote other than that right there.
Well, there was a little bit more context to it because I believe he was on the. I believe he was at the entrance or exit to the Air Force One in front of the media when he was saying that. Not much more, but he did indicate that he could be in serious trouble and he shouldn't have done that. And then he said, it's a lot of people are interested in it, and okay. All right, so you keep going with what you got, and then
all right,
then I'll tear it.
So when President Obama came out and he made that statement, I'll be honest with you, I kind of chuckled. I really did at first. I chuckled. I was like, okay, President Clinton's come out, made a statement of sorts. Ronald Reagan kind of hinted at certain things as well when he spoke.
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter. A ton of presidents have come out and lightly hinted at everything about this. So when President Obama came out and stated, they're real, I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept at Area 51 or any facility like that, unless it's something they're keeping hidden from the president. I went, oh, okay, that's odd. Just kind of blurt that out. And then when President Trump came out and made that statement as well, and you could tell Trump was kind of caught off guard as well. If you watch him, he's like, because he blurts it out. He gave away classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now so President Trump is now going to have all files and everything allegedly released, that pertains to. But we just went through this back in 22, though.
Dude, we've been going through this for how long? Okay, so can I get into it now?
This is yours. All you.
All right. And to reiterate what Matt said about not getting political, I will bring up some political things, but it is not with the intent to start seeing people in the chat start slinging poo at one or the other. He's ordered the release of files. Wow. We've just been through a whole bunch of files that have been released. 30,000 different pages of files that have been released about a certain thing. What do we know? What do we know from all of that? From the 30,000 sheets of data that have been released, what have we learned about that? Nothing.
Evil.
Nothing other than there's some bad things going on.
And one arrest.
You got Pam Bondi, who, whatever she is or in whatever capacity she's acting, just recently in a congressional hearing said something to the effect that if we arrested everyone, the entire system would collapse.
Collapse it.
So, okay, so there's that. 2017, New York Times article comes out about the UFO stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then since then, some months go by and there's a little bit more trickles out, and then you have, this major push for disclosure, and then you have congressional hearings, and then you have the whistleblowers who are coming in, and, as much as I want to believe these whistleblowers that come in, I'll stand behind believing David Fravor. This one guy that showed up that was part of working in the Antarctic. I forget the company that he worked for, where he was talking about the sensors and everything that were buried a mile deep into Antarctica, and they were all these different types of signals. And his whistleblower testimony was eye-opening. Okay, it was interesting. Then the subsequent podcasts afterwards, and it seems like it gets a little more sensational as the podcasts go on. And Raytheon, I think, was the company that he worked for. So I keep listen. 1970 is when Chariots of the Gods came out. I was 5 years old. I begged and pleaded my parents to take me to see it at 5. Ended up getting my grandmother to take me while my parents were out, and she was babysitting. And due to the times at the time, she was perfectly comfortable falling asleep in the theater next to me, a 5-year-old child, while I'm sitting there looking at the screen of crop circles and UFO pictures and all this stuff from Eric Van Doniken's viewpoint. So I've been in this for a long time. I had an experience when I was, and this is terrible to say because I cannot tell you exactly when this happened. I want to say I was 12 or 13. I had, it was 10:30, quarter to 11 at night. I'm watching Son of Svengoolie, which was a popular weekend horror movie, comedy type show that would air out of Chicago. My neighborhood lit up brighter than the brightest of midday. It was weird as shit, and it was so bright. I remember looking across the street at the big oak trees in Mr. Dale's backyard, and nothing was casting a shadow. You could see the underneath of the leaves under the tree canopy, and it was like, that was very strange. And, flash forward a bunch of years, I'm talking to a woman in Florida who somehow or another I got put into contact with. It was somebody that I shot pool with. One of the wives of the pool players said, "Hey, I got a friend of mine that lives down in Florida. She's thinking about moving back up here to South Bend, and I think you guys would get along really well." So, we started having some phone calls and stuff like that. And at one point she asked me, so what kind of stuff are you into? And this was prior to me starting the podcast. And I said, UFOs have always been a big thing. Excuse me. And she said her brother had a UFO experience. And we started talking about it, and come to find out, at the time when she still lived up here, it was very, very close to the same time that I had that experience that our neighborhood lit up. But their residence was due east of me, 15, 20 minutes east. But his recounting of what happened to her was exactly the same thing that I saw. So, it kind of all went together, and the timeline lined up. At one point, I had done some investigating, trying to narrow down when that happened. And I cannot remember what the website was, whether it was MUFON or if it was one of the other UFO network reporting agencies or what. But I got pretty close to finding a report that was very, very similar to that, and it did line up pretty close time-wise. So was it the same event? I can't say for sure, but you would think something that was that impactful, I would remember that it was August 13th, 1984 or whatever it was, but I can't do that. I can't tell you that. I do remember I was probably in the neighborhood of 12 or 13 years old. And it was very weird. It was very weird. There was no good reason that my entire neighborhood at after 10:30, quarter to 11 at night would have lit up. And the way it did when I looked to the right out our picture window, I could see where the light pretty much stopped. You could see darkness beyond it, but I could also see the roofs of the houses and the tree canopies and stuff that were lit up. It appeared to me, looking back on it, it appeared that the light source was, relatively straight above us. I don't remember any missing time. It seemed like it took a while. The experience lasted a while, but in reality, how long did it take? Couldn't have been that long. It was enough time. I can tell you this for sure. It was enough time for the dusk to dawn street light. It was bright enough to shut that off. And when the light went out like that and everything went back to being dark, you could see the flicker in the dusk to dawn street light because the sensor was gauging that it needed to come back on. So it started flickering to reignite. I do remember seeing that. So, I've been into this for a long time, and I'm not going to say that, my grandmother and I were beamed up or anything like that. It was definitely not that. There was that would have either been a Friday or a Saturday because it was a weekend night. My parents only got the newspaper on Sundays because they were cheap, and that's the only days that the local grocery stores would have the ads for the next week. So later Sunday, after the newspaper came through and my dad was reading the newspaper, I walked out of the kitchen. I started walking down the hallway to my bedroom, and my dad says, "Hey, here's your fucking UFO story, kid." And I said, "What?" And I walked back into the living room, and he read me this little blurb that was, maybe 3 or 4 lines in the South Bend Tribune. And basically it said, residents of Hollyhock Road, just south of the state line, reported seeing unusual lights above Claffey's Field. So when you leave my neighborhood, and I keep saying my neighborhood because I now currently live in the house that I was a child in. When you leave this neighborhood and you drive out the back of it, you drive onto Hollyhock Road, which is where those people were. The people that faced east were facing Claffey's property. And there was a field, and then there was like about maybe a 1/2 to 3/4 acre plot that they just left as wild grass. And during the summer months, when we wanted to play hot box or football or tag or whatever, some kind of pickup game, they would let us go play on that field, and that's where we would go play. So the people that said they saw the lights were looking directly at where we would play, and those lights were over that, which is 500 yards, 600 yards out of my neighborhood, but directly in line with even the street that I lived on when those lights happened on that night. So it all points to something happened, but whatever it was, I have no idea. But so roundabout way to get to what I'm going to say here about Obama and Trump and all that. So on the outset, yeah, Obama's comment is interesting for sure. But is it just that? Is it just a comment? Yeah, they're real. I think they're real. I don't have any evidence to suggest that they are real, other than my belief that forever I have assumed and believed that with as vast as this universe is, we cannot be the only ones. There's got to be something else out there. This isn't a condemnation of anybody's religion or a confirmation of anybody's religion. It has nothing to do with that. But it only makes sense to me that we cannot possibly be that one tiny little spark of whatever happened just right to produce life here. I don't buy it.
I'm with you. No, I'm with you on that one because you brought that up, and Rick in the comments asked a question for you, and he goes, "How do you feel about UFOs being not from space, but from but something here?"
That's an interesting question, and that has changed so many times throughout my interest in this. I would have to say that, okay, with answering his question in a roundabout way by telling you this. So you go back to biblical references of these things, right? And you have paintings that have things up in the sky that look like a UFO. You have reports from different periods in time. All right. You've got, I forget what century it was in France, but they had part of their cultural lore was that figures came down from the sky and basically depleted their crops. And then you move into, the 1930s, or I'm sorry, before that, you move into the turn of the century, right? Where you have reports of people seeing these flying machines, but they describe them as more like balloons and dirigibles or hot air balloons, around the world in 80 days or whatever that story was. And then you get to the 40s and 50s, and everything has got a sci-fi flair to it. So, the reports of what people are seeing are essentially flying saucers after, the Mount Rainier report from the one pilot who reported seeing these things that looked like they were skimming across the water. And then now you get to a more technologically advanced time, which we're in, and you have these things that are appearing to be amorphous, where they seem to be changing shape, or they're not really observable. And that's the word that I want to get at, is whatever your feeling is towards Luis Elizondo, which there has been some new things that have come out that may indicate that he is a little shady, with what he's with what he's presenting. I don't know him from Adam. I don't have any backward knowledge of any of this stuff, but the one thing I do think that he's been good at throughout his public career in this is leaving little nuggets, little breadcrumb trails. Now, whether that's to lead people on a wild goose chase or whether that's to make people look at things more realistically, I don't know. But you know, he's a champion of the 5 observables. And when you look at those 5 observables closely and the wording behind it, you become very apparent to the fact that these things are not very observable. And if there's any truth to the descriptors that have been used throughout history, these things tend to change their appearance based on the level of intelligence of humanity at the time they're being seen. So it would not have made any sense for these things to show up and look like some kind of amorphous metallic ever-changing orb or vehicle or mechanical whatever, back in a time where nobody would have been able to explain it.
Right.
Now we have all these different ways of explaining things. And is this part of what makes non-human intelligence so far superior to us? And to answer his question specifically, as far as I'm concerned, I used to believe that these things were physical ships that were coming here with little alien bodies in it from vast distances, and were coming here to either observe us, to in some way scientifically get information on us. You got to go back to something that doesn't get talked about a lot anymore. Mutilations, cattle mutilations. That when you start looking into cattle mutilations, there have been an enormous amount of reports and documented cases of cattle mutilation. What are they? Is it the CIA? Black Ops helicopters coming in and taking pieces and parts out of cattle to do tests on? I mean, it could be.
Well, on that one, can't they get their own cows? So when I hear stuff like that, to be honest with you, the CIA is coming here in their black helicopters, what is the financial gain? And that's one thing I've learned over the years when I come into, doing a lot of the research when it comes to major conspiracies, and that being one of them, the cow mutilations. What is the financial gain?
Yeah.
What gain is there to any entity? I'm not a genius, but I'm not a dumb person either. I consider myself a pretty smart guy. So I'm going to look at from all angles, where do they gain financially? What,
Right.
Because that's what, you think about it, like you brought it up earlier, of certain files that were just released and only one arrest, the gain right there. And she said it best, is there's a financial gain to it. If they arrest everybody, it's going to collapse.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is, as badly as we want to, what would be the economical, fallout on us?
I think it'd be,
that makes sense.
I think it'll be significant.
It would be major. And I think they're trying to pick and choose of what they're trying to go after. And of course, us, John Q. Public, I'm all about hanging them all up. I really am. String them all up. Just go back to, I'll go to Times Square and have a good time, watch them be strung up. But, when it comes to what does the CIA gain? They can get their own cows. There's not that hard to go buy a cow. You and I could go buy a cow today if we wanted to.
Right. And if I did, I'd go buy it because I'd butcher it and help me with my carnivore diet. So certainly would be doing experiments on it. But
No.
I mean, so back to, you know, I don't think that they're coming here from vast distances anymore. I now think that they are something that is probably more in line with what they're trying to describe as ultra terrestrial, or maybe even ultra dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
Those words are hard to wrap your head around, and they make you kind of, your brain kind of wants to, you know. But you know, if there is something that, if there's something to, and I firmly believe there is, our vision is only acute to a certain range of light, right? We can only see in certain spectrums. We can only hear in certain spectrums. There's things like dog whistles that we can't hear. You know, there's infrasound that is so low that we can't hear it, but we can feel it and we can be affected by it. So there are so many ranges outside of our human perception that it only makes sense to me that if these things are in existence, they're in existence alongside of us, at the same time as us, in parallel to us. And for whatever reason, there is an ability for us to, or they to, peer into what we consider to be our reality. And the reason I say that is because throughout my investigative career into all these weird things, you know, I've done paranormal investigations. I've done, obviously we're talking about it, so you know, I've been into the UFO connection for forever. And a lot of people don't like to entertain any of the woo aspects of Bigfoot. But when you stop compartmentalizing Bigfoot is only Bigfoot, and UFOs are only UFOs, and weirdness is only weirdness, and spirituality is only spirituality. If you break down those walls and you start to draw things from all those different reports and you put them into the same pot, what do you wind up with? Well, in my experience of going into a haunted location, I've heard knocks. I've heard knocks on walls. I've heard knocks on desks. I've heard knocks that seemingly come out of the clear blue. We hear knocks in the woods. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that, you know, the most closely resembling sound is to take a very hard wood bat and either find a perfectly tuned tree to hit it again, or you take another bat that's made out of hardwood and you rack those two together and you get this resounding thud that echoes and has some depth to it, and it seems to carry for quite a ways, and then you hear another one very similar off in the distance. Not an echo, but almost one answering. So you get knocks in paranormal activity, you get knocks in Bigfoot activity, you get orbs, lights, indistinct lights in, I physically have on camera with my daughter, got an orb that just came out of nowhere. It was about the size of a golf ball. It was light blue and white, kind of had a light blue haze or a halo around it, but predominantly white. Showed up on camera in front of us. My daughter reacted to seeing it in person. I reacted to seeing it on the screen of the camcorder. At the base of, or at the top of a monument in a graveyard that we were doing an impromptu investigation at. Came out of nowhere, zipped around real quick, did some figure eights, and then poof, it was gone. Wasn't like
I'm gonna pause you real quick on that one.
yeah.
So same thing. This past summer when we were up in our investigation area, we were at yesterday. I talked to you on the phone when me and Jacob were going up there. I had 3 eyewitnesses in a camcorder. The eyewitnesses recall a figure walking through the front yard, big figure, dark gray shadow type person walking through the front of the property. They initially thought it was one of us, that was out in the woods researching. I had 2 teams, one who had one in our area 2 and one in area 4. And they didn't realize that to get to the front yard from area 4, they have to jump a barbed wire fence. None of us are jumping a barbed wire fence. I mean, we're all 50 plus except for Jacob.
Yes.
So so none of us are doing that. On camera, as he called it in, he said he's had contact. I radioed back in, record, record, record. Because I'll be honest with you, and I'm guilty of it too. When I'm out there and I see something, I forget to want to break this out, and that's my job. I mean, yeah. So as he recorded, you can hear him on the recording describing the figure. On camera is an orb.
Yeah.
It didn't show up as a figure on camera; it showed up as an orb. And you can hear all 3 of them talking about where it's at, and he's trying to direct the camera where this thing is at, and you see this orb just kind of going right along with it.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing too, though, knocks in the woods, knocks in the house. If you take what we encounter a lot of times on our cryptid hunts and we put it into a house, it's a poltergeist.
Mhm. Yeah.
It matches up.
So if you start to break down the walls between all these different things and you let some of it seep in together, right? You start coming up with some very interesting commonalities between the different things. So if all of these things are alike, and I'll use that word just because there's no way to quantify the similarities or differences between these different aspects. But if they're all like in the way that our perception is allowed to view them, then, maybe they all maybe they all are part of something very similar or the same. And maybe it is more of a conscious perception on our individual part when we see something like that, rather than being actual. Because going back to the observable aspect of it, they try to quantify these observables, and there's not a lot of information to draw from, because so many people view these things in so many different ways, and whether it's a cultural thing, Vimanas in India, or UFOs in 1950s Midwest America, or whatever it is. To me, now my perception of what are these things has changed considerably, and I think they are what they present themselves as at whatever given time it is. If you're walking into the woods and you're already experiencing some sort of anxiety just because the woods are considerably different than the cement and brick walls of downtown South Bend, and you go into the woods for a while, it takes a while to get comfortable, right? You're not immediately at ease in an unknown surrounding, right? So what if your mind is part of how you perceive the things that are going on around you? And if you see something, if you're lucky enough or unfortunate enough to have something appear in front of you or off to the side out of your peripheral vision, darting in between trees and stuff, maybe our reaction is simply our conscious way of being able to make sense of what's going on. And the more that we find out that these anomalous lights and, things that appear to be drones, but then, in the next couple of frames seem to change. I'm not aware of any kind of technology that we have for doing something that would do that, unless Project Bluebeam is real and they decide to, test it out in small town America. I'm not convinced that that is a real thing. I think that's another one of our made up conspiracies.
Well, before you move on, let me go back to what you said, how in the woods, you're not used to it and stuff, and you see something and your mind goes to justify it. I interviewed a guy, and that's what he describes. He was walking along, and to his left, something was keeping pace with him. In his mind, he saw a guy in red flannel, like a lumberjack. So his mind was, there's another person right here beside me on the other side of the trees in his peripheral, wasn't trying to stare at him. As soon as they got to a clearing, it wasn't a guy and wearing red flannel. It was a big, hairy creature. But his mind was putting it into that, all the way through there. And I think a lot of times when we are in the woods or we are in the house, we do have the paranormal or the cryptid or even the UFO encounters, that our mind is automatically going to go to a safe space to protect us, to be like, okay, no, that's not real. Because, because nowadays that's how it is. Every movie, every show has been that way for, I mean, gosh, let's see, we're trying to, not centuries, but, decades.
I don't even
it's not real. It's not real. It's not real.
I don't think you even have to quantify it as a safe space as much as it is a recognizable pattern that your brain can adjust to. That's the thing, is that your brain's trying to put it into context of something that you can understand rather than what just happened, so yeah,
I agree.
But we've digressed. I've and I knew this would happen. I apologize. But like with Obama's statement, right? He makes the statement, and honestly, it could have been just what he said. He was going with the flow, and his belief is that they're real, but he hasn't seen any evidence of it. His backtrack, as far as I'm concerned, was very expected. So his backtrack, what I meant was, can't be the only ones, and it's only logical, but blah blah blah. And then you got Trump, who I'm ordering everybody to release. Come on, man. Are you really gonna, okay. So just because you said that, now everybody's going to be like, well, shit, we better release everything then. No, they're not going to. This is going to be another frustrating moment that's going to pass. And everybody's going to be, remember when Obama said, remember when, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, nothing happened. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen, is nothing. You've had the Age of Disclosure come out. They've made a huge deal about that movie, The Age of Disclosure. I went into it with open mind, and I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting something with substance. I heard a lot of the same things that I've already heard. I heard a couple of things that were kind of made you tilt your head a little bit and be like, I haven't heard that. But it hasn't forwarded the movement at all. And I think we got to understand that, there's been a change in government, right? So, at the time, like during World War II, I think the president of the United States at that time was the commander in chief. I truly believe that at that point in our history, he had the ultimate say. He was the top dog, and everybody around him knew it, and they reacted to his. I don't think there was the compartmentalization of information that there is now. And I think that has been something that has happened over the last 80 years, 90 years, whatever it is. I don't think it started with Roswell. I think it happened before that. I think that incrementally there have been things that have been omitted from the president. Because you look at the president of the United States, and at best, up till this point, and I say that begrudgingly, up till this point, at best, you get 8 years out of this fella, right? Why would you turn over all of the information to a part-time hire?
You're not going to.
You're not going to. So I think that that's probably been the status quo, and increasingly so throughout the last 80 years. And I think that presidents are kept in the dark intentionally, probably so that there's nothing can come back on them. But so many of these things indicate that there are so many black op contractors and things that are being, shoved. And I'm not just talking about, alien technology. I mean, there's so many things that I think, no disrespect to anybody in office now or recently, when I say I think they're kept intentionally stupid. Now, I will go on to say that they do their own things to make them stupid as well. But, I truly do think that they don't have the access to information like they did 80, 90 years ago.
Well, you remember the movie Independence Day?
Yeah.
They bring that up. They bring that point straight up. He looks right at him and goes, "How come I didn't know about this?" Mm-hmm. And they covered it very, very comically. And we've been saying it for a long time. What, you think they're really spending, $600 on a toilet seat?
Right.
So, I do believe that right there is that, Sloan just jumped in and said plausible deniability. To where they're not, the only time the president would have to need to know is if something was coming in from space, i.e., like the movie Independence Day. I do think some of these movies do drop a little bit of a little fact. It's obviously, but little hints. I'm not saying that Hollywood knows everything that's going on. I really don't think they all do at all. But I do think certain movies do have certain disclosures about them.
Well, I agree with you, and I would think that I have to go on record as saying that I think Steven Spielberg, with the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, was probably the pinnacle of someone who was given adequately accurate information during the filming of Close Encounters. Mm-hmm. I do think that, obviously, the one character is a reference to Jacques Vallée, the Frenchman that's in the movie. And then we literally had, what's his name was in the movie, Allen Hynek, did a cameo. So I do think that there was some precipice for disclosure within that movie. And
disclosure in Harry and the Hendersons.
Wildly more than what I think people understand.
Yeah, if you look at the credits, they give credit to the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah. Well, just the things that they touch on in such a remarkably subtle way.
Mhm.
Whoever was responsible for doing the footwork of getting the information about these creatures, yeah, there's a lot in there that that points to this wasn't just a random lucky series of guesses onto what these things were. Um, and I anticipate that Steven Spielberg's um, new movie that's coming out, oddly enough, on my birthday.
Mm.
Yeah,
I'm
June
ready for it. I'm excited to see
12th.
this one.
I hope that he continues to do his thing and drop some more nuggets. I don't expect that it's going to be a oh my god, holy shit moment, but I do hope that it pans out to be thought provoking, and I think it will be.
The
But
trailers make it look really interesting. Like it is going to be something that I think a lot of us are going to pause and look at and go
yeah,
and try and dig in deeper into it. I do got to bring this in for a landing. I've been drinking coffee. I'll just leave the hint at that one. So I do want to real quick, everybody, if you have not had a chance, if you're not following the Uncomfortable podcast, you definitely need to. This is somebody, if you've known me for quite a while, I look up to. Um, and when I get stuck in certain spots or I have some really strange things I need to get some information on, I send to Eric. Eric will give it to me straight. He doesn't BS around. The infamous face photo that Chris took, Eric is the one who found the face. I was asking about something else in the picture.
completely different.
If you remember, like, what is this thing? He sends me back and he goes, "That's a structure, but what is this?"
Yeah,
And if you guys haven't seen the face thing, I'll probably drop it again on Facebook. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's probably one of the best things, evidence that I have seen, I mean, of this face.
that was
And
great.
Chris was lucky to catch it because in the picture before it, it's not there, but
Yeah,
it's there. And so it looks like it's going to. So everybody go check out the Uncomfortable podcast. You're on YouTube. You're on Spotify. That's where I listen to you. That's on Spotify.
yep.
Uh,
App podcast, all of the major players as far as podcast players go. I'm on all of them. So
it's a little U, capital N.
yes. Yep. Yep. Lowercase u, uppercase n, and the word comfortable underneath it. So it's
I
about
love it.
what 4.5 years now I've been doing it. I took some time off over the last year. Was kind of inconsistent. Just living life though, got
That's what
my
you're supposed to do. Once it becomes too much, you need to take a break. And I think when you took a break, I did miss you. Because I was talking to you while you were gone.
yeah.
And you were sharing some ideas and such. So um I'm glad you're back. You're knocking them out. You're doing great. You got some great guests on your show, some
Thank
great insight going on there. You
thank you.
guys, so I do highly recommend. This is one of my personal recommendations for a podcast to listen to. So, and Eric doesn't hold back. He will go on. And so his episodes sometimes will run an hour 15, and sometimes they're right at 2 hours or more.
Yeah.
And he gets into it. So Eric is lighthearted. He is very well spoken. He's very well educated as well, and you can definitely tell that in his shows. So, brother, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna kill us here, and then I am going to call you here in a little bit. Is that cool?
All right, man. Thank
All
you.
right, brother. Thanks, everybody. Y'all stay safe out there.
Have a great day.